Oh, wait. Okay. Hey!
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Awesome. Thanks for joining
Of
us.
course. Happy to be here.
Um, Go ahead and introduce yourself. Well, first, actually, I should start now that the intro is over by letting
Sure.
everyone know that all of our partners, all of our bios for all of our speakers are on our website. It's journey2socententrpreneurship.com. So if you're just joining us, definitely check that out. But instead of reading the bio, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sounds good. So my name's Shonak Patel. I'm calling in from Boston, Mass. I've grown up here. I come from a family of entrepreneurs and educators, and I started my career actually in real estate, commercial real estate. I did a bunch of 4 years of work of buying German grocery stores. It was kind of like a investment banking real estate position. It was odd, but it got me to travel. It was fun. And then in 2009, I quit my job amidst kind of all the financial crisis stuff that was going on. And I did something I wanted to go do anyways when I was graduating from college in 2006, which was just volunteering. I wanted to get some experience doing that stuff. So I quit my job and I went down to New Orleans and I did AmeriCorps. I volunteered with the Louisiana Delta Service Corps, which is a direct service position. And the organization I was placed with was the New Orleans Neighborhood Development Collaborative. And that was just a community development organization. We did a variety of different things of affordable housing, some community organizing, and just working with residents on a variety of different issues. After that, I got really, really motivated to kind of take my own path within social entrepreneurship, which is something I've always wanted to do and I always had wanted to do. And I started my first education startup. It was education fundraising startup that was kind of aimed at solving the problem that was like really, really bothering me, that a lot of my friends who were teachers were spending money out of their own pockets on classroom supplies. And as a result, kind of limiting the experiences that students might be able to experience. So I started a company that was trying to convert a portion of our daily spending into funding for a specific classroom need. It didn't work. I learned a lot. And then I got
talk about that.
Yeah, and then I got back out there and I started another one immediately. That one's still going, and that's a virtual classroom platform. I stepped out of that because actually the technology was too futuristic for what the needs of the customer and people would use it. And then now I'm actually at Testive, which I didn't start, but I was kind of at the ground floor. And we do SAT and ACT prep. And we provide free software to kind of try and make it accessible for all people. So,
yeah. So you're an ed tech master. So we're going to talk about that a little bit.
I'm trying to be.
But my first question is actually, so on your Testive bio, it says that the song that best describes your personality is Jackson 5's ABC. So you have to explain that to me.
Interesting. Cool. I didn't see that one coming. So a couple things. One, just the pace of the song is very much me. Upbeat, fast. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, bob in your head. That's you're moving along. Also, it's simple. It keeps things simple. You know, it's ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. I think I like a major thing I try to prescribe to is don't overthink things and focus. Just focus on 1 to 3 things. If everyone's doing 1 to 3 things really well all the time, you're actually winning.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a great motto. And I mean, ABC is very education, 1, 2, 3 is very code. So, you know, great. Awesome. So I do want to go ahead and backtrack to your journey a little bit. So you graduated college, you went into real estate investment stuff, and then you went and did a year of service. What was that transition like?
It was interesting. I mean, it was, for me, my path to AmeriCorps was very different from everyone else I served with. Everyone else I served with down in New Orleans was pretty much right out of school, or they're taking a gap year. The transition was, it was easy actually, because I wanted it really badly. I actually got a lot out of the fact that I had experience and I had some perspective to add in a different way in terms of like, I thought one of the things that I had developed, one of the skill sets that I had developed that I don't think that was intuitive to a lot of people I served with was just kind of systems thinking. My experience in real estate, I had to kind of build up. It was a small team, so I had to build up a lot of things from kind of the ground up and scale them into processes and tasks that would actually be repeatable. And I was able to bring some of that to the experience down in New Orleans. Overall, the transition was exactly what I was looking for out of my experience. I had come down, I wanted to go do the volunteering because I knew I was always going to do something in social entrepreneurship. That's why I went to Babson, which is kind of top entrepreneurship school in the country. It's always been on my radar, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and then also how I would want to do it and who I wanted to serve it for. And I think the thing that the most profound thing that I kind of uncovered was just I went down with the intention of helping, like this idealistic, like I'm going to go help and that would make me, but I was the one who benefited the most from the experience. And that's, I think, true for a lot of service experiences that you don't realize until you go and do it,
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I share that sentiment. I think a lot of people do. So you went from investment banking, and now you're very hands-on down in New Orleans. Lost my mind there for a second. You're very hands-on. And then what made you want to go into ed tech specifically? So what was the drive there? And talk a little bit about that first company. I mean, you mentioned it.
Sure. So the work I was doing in New Orleans, I was working in a neighborhood called Central City, which was one of the more underserved neighborhoods in the city. And a lot of the work, the reason it was fun was it wasn't a desk job that I had worked for 4 years. I was out in the community kind of talking to people. We were doing a lot of surveying. We'd go to community meetings. And honestly, the thing that got me just really, really focused on education was the underlying problem, and this is kind of what AmeriCorps taught me. There's a lot of issues in different neighborhoods. There's poverty, there's health, there's education, there's a variety of different issues. But a lot of it is just an access thing. It's like most of the people I was talking with, they're trapped in that block, and they're actually never going to leave it unless you build their capacity up, basically. And so I personally got hooked on education because I was actually interacting with a lot of the kids in the neighborhood just in the afternoons. They're eating their snowballs and I'm talking to them I got hooked on the fact that they were more or less trapped unless they had opportunities to kind of expand their horizon, engage them in different ways. And all the other stuff that, we were working on didn't really matter unless they could get out.
Right.
And so I got just really hooked on just ed tech and education as the sole thing I wanted to focus on, because I think it's personally, I believe that's like one of the underlying problems.
And I love what you said. A lot of times I get asked with the next generation of service, why do you focus on year-long programs and long-term programs and not the short-term ones? And it's not because there's anything wrong with short-term volunteering. It's great. Be involved in your community. But because the long-term ones do allow you to see the system, to actually meet the people, hear their stories, and understand exactly what you're talking about, that they are trapped. Like there is a trap that we build in this country, and it's not that people can't get out. They can, they absolutely can, and they do all the time. But if we're going to really impact change, we're going to help people get out of those traps, and it's going to be systemic, and it's going to be more sustainable in that way.
Right.
Education is definitely closing the education gap solves a lot of problems. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us about this first venture. And first, so it sounds like AmeriCorps is part of the reason that inspired you to go into EdTech. Were there any skills you learned in AmeriCorps that you used right after when you started this venture? Yeah,
definitely. I think when you're starting your own thing, even with this whole production, that like you guys are doing, a lot of it is about selling and just kind of recruiting and getting people on board with what you're passionate about, right? And I mean, that is what, to me, AmeriCorps was, in a lot of ways, was you're working for a nonprofit that's kind of mission driven, and you believe in what they're doing, and you believe in the constituency that, you're serving. And you just, what it taught me actually was to kind of how to do that sales and marketing of a process, because the right way to do it, and now I know this kind of I've done sales and marketing for the last 5 years, is the right way to do it is actually to listen and to ask questions. It's not to actually go preach and put words into people's mouth. So even at Testive, actually, like, we always talk to candidates and we say sales at Testive it's about listening. It's not about talking, and it's about asking good questions, not answering them. And I think AmeriCorps taught me that, or my experience in AmeriCorps taught me that, for sure. The other thing is it's all a big experiment. Everything's an experiment, and that's how everything new or challenging should be looked at. If you have a very difficult problem, for example, the problems that the kids and the families that I was working with in Central City, they have lots of different difficult problems. The solution to that actually doesn't start with like some grandiose idea. It starts with a hypothesis about how you can change something, and then testing it iteratively, slowly, surely. And it took me actually, AmeriCorps gave me the seeds of that. It took me failing on my feet on my first one for me to understand that, actually.
To put it all together.
Yeah.
I love that you're saying this for a couple reasons. One, I meet young people who are like, well, I do want to go into corporate eventually, so I don't know if I want to do a year of service. And I tell them, similar to what you just said, if you can sell an idea, right? If you can work in a development office or sell a program to a community, that's something that's like not a tangible item.
Yeah.
It's an idea. If you can sell that, then you can go sell products, right? Like it's so much easier to sell a product, I think, than to sell an idea. You have to be really clever. And so I tell people all the time, like, don't knock off a year of service if you want to go into the business sector. It's going to help, even in that sales marketing. So I love that you brought that up. And I also really love this idea of listening and really building that into your marketing strategy, because listening is a key component in community building, which is really, sounds like a lot of what you were doing in your AmeriCorps. And now with the new trends in marketing, where we have, online media and Yelp and all these things, listening is the new trend there too. So I love that you brought up that. And we have a question for my co-host. So what are some common questions that you use in this process at Testive or at any of your startups? What are some common questions that you like to ask your users?
Users. So I like to ask, there's a couple questions I'll just give you a couple generic ones of like, one is, there's a magic wand exercise. If you could wave a magic wand, and you could have like one thing, what would it be? That's always a good thing.
Because not guessing the need.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, we always ask as part of like kind of our qualification or matching process, if we're talking to a student about test prep, or if I'm talking Gather Education, which was my virtual classroom startup, you're asking mainly a lot of questions around like, what was your experience using X, right? What was missing? What's missing is really important. What do you wish it had? And the trick there is you have to have people on your team who are solutions thinkers. And I view my job as actually flushing out the problem. I've turned more into like solutions oriented, but like, when you pair up with, the reason I like technology is because technology, when you find really smart, intelligent, passionate people who are committed to education on the technology side, they come up with some amazing things. And putting those two brains together actually creates some really great collaboration and outcomes. So that's kind of some of the questions. It depends on the use case, like, but great. I like the magic wand one as a just generic, like, to get people. The other thing to do is in terms of the questions you use, a lot of it has to do with actually showing people, not telling people. So if you have a prototype or something you want to show off, when you're doing a customer interview or a customer survey or a resident survey for that matter, if you're doing AmeriCorps, show them what it could look like and then get feedback on that. And think of the cheapest, simplest way to kind of make that and present that. And that's kind of the best way to do it.
Yeah, the automatic emails in the back don't need to be working yet.
Yeah, they don't.
You just have to have the front and get people to get the idea.
Exactly.
I work in nonprofit tech as a consultant, and that's exactly what I try to do.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely good advice. So I want to dive into your companies a little bit more.
Sure.
So I want to start with your first venture and kind of what you learned from that, and ultimately why you decided to kind of hang up the towel and say, all right, we're officially checking this off the list, and what that was like.
Cool. So that process was amazing. Like your first idea that you feel has legs is like a really cool experience. So I recruited my best friend from kindergarten and another of my buddies from New Orleans, actually, and he quit grad school. My other friend quit his high-paying job. We all moved back. We went all hands on deck.
Nice.
And we took, the idea stemmed from just kind of wanting to solve our friends' problems and just kind of an injustice that we saw, but also a market opportunity that was going on with, there was, at the time, Groupon was getting really big and people were shifting their money to discounts. And we asked the question of why there's other ways for people to kind of appeal and shift their spending, and cause marketing is a big thing, right? So, we tried to kind of tackle it from that angle. And the biggest thing I learned from that was, again, just think of it's all about testing and experimentation. So, very controlled, simple tests early. We took 4 months to get 5 months to get a product out to anyone. And in the meantime, we're telling people about our idea, and everyone's saying, yeah, that's great. It's awesome.
But you're not showing them.
Yeah, we're going to do it. Yeah. And then we didn't show it, and then we just took far too long to get any real feedback. And the fact of the matter is, especially on, the for-profit side, nonprofit side, a lot of people vote with their dollars. And you can't ignore that. It's a really important part to building something that's sustainable. So we ran it out for about 11 months. We also discovered a lot of structural things that made it kind of hard. We invested our personal savings into it, and we were fully committed into it. But we just ran into a bunch of kind of structural challenges that, in terms of school politics and some legalities.
Shares you're paying there.
Some legalities that we had a lot of teachers wanting to use us, but then the school district reached out to us and said, stop talking to our teachers because there was a law that prevented it. And then we just learned a lot, but we went through a startup accelerator called Mass Challenge, which was really, really helpful for us as far as accelerating our learning. And at the end of the day, we found a company that had kind of a local company in Boston who had tried to do something similar to what we were trying to do. And they had raised a lot more money than we had, and they didn't reach kind of the milestones they needed to go to the next stage. And so we just looked at the factors and just decided that the timing wasn't right, and shut it down, went on our ways.
And Donors Choose came out before or after you guys?
Before, and we were trying to piggyback off of Donors Choose, but blend in the commerce piece, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. So then you started Gather Education, which is still functioning. So what was the why behind doing that?
So that one wasn't actually my idea per se, but it was as part of the process with Sweller, which was my first one, I got really hooked actually on the learning side, the delivery aspect of education and the possibilities there that technology could have. as far as opening up access and things like that. And this one, Gather Education, caught my eye because it was a really interesting use of game technology that would allow us to deliver kind of interactive experiences at lower bandwidth levels. So you could have, a professor in Boston speaking to someone in rural Africa, and on a low, a poor internet connection. So the play there was actually just to try and get the online classroom environment is actually taught a lot like this. It's like a teacher is sitting down, and the fact of the matter is no teacher is trained like that.
Interesting.
They're trained to stand up and move around, and that's not traditional teaching. We actually wanted to use technology to allow them to kind of move around a virtual room using the Kinect and kind of an iPad and a virtual room, and it was just too tech heavy. So I did over 100 kind of customer interviews, different use cases, and ultimately I worked on that for about a year, and just the timing wasn't right to try and sell it or market it. And so we developed the technology, and we continue to develop just the technology with kind of specific use cases. Yeah.
And everyone should check it out. It's actually very cool.
It's very cool.
So it is. It's really cool. It's like you're in like you said, it's like a game, like a video game, but the teacher is actually able to stand and move like a teacher would. And Alex, actually, my co-host, was making fun of me yesterday because I talk with my hands. And my mom was a teacher. She talks with her hands. We all talk with our hands. But like I lose that with you right now. Yeah, with that, like the teacher can move and like write on a whiteboard and call as people raise their hands. It's very cool.
It was cool. It was cool. So like it was cool, but it wasn't useful.
It wasn't right. I was just gonna say, but it didn't have like a market that you could actually monetize easily right now. Yeah.
Not even monetize. It was just too heavy for even getting people to use it. Like not everyone has an iPad. Not everyone has a Kinect. It's just like when all that's built into your computer, or like they were talking about having the Kinect built into the computer and things like that. Now it would be a different game. So my learnings from like Sweller and even AmeriCorps helped me get to that conclusion faster. And just make a decision about like not the right time, which saved me a lot of time and saved our group a lot of money, and eventually, hopefully, it's useful to someone.
Yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, you're right. Like right now, a lot of teachers are podcasting, which is a much easier kind of technology to grab onto, and so I can see how that. Cool. Great. So so talk a little bit about Testive and what you guys are working on and why that was exciting for you.
So I ended up. After Gather Education, I actually took a year off for personal reasons, and I got back out into it like September 2013. I was looking around for different opportunities, and I actually knew Miro and Tom, who are the founders of Testive, because at the time in 2010 there were only a handful of education startups in Boston, and Testive was kind of getting off the ground at that point, and so I knew them. I got excited about test prep because Testive, because actually not because I'm excited about test prep. I actually really don't like test prep as a concept as part of the system, but actually the way Miro and Tom and at the time I was the fourth employee, the guys who were there, the way we were thinking about it, a lot of education companies, and I think a lot of the way a lot of companies start is they're always trying to replace the person. And so a lot of ed tech companies from 2010 to even 20 to now, they're very much focused on how do we kind of get around the teacher or scale up the teacher, and I think what I love about Testive, and when I came in, they moved from software only to adding software with a human element. Is we're revolutionizing, I believe, the way online education is delivered. Nowadays, there's a lot of talk around the MOOCs, the massive online classes, where that's accessible to everyone. And the problem with those is, yes, it's accessible to everyone, but the big problem is most people lack motivation. Motivation is a big problem.
Yeah. I quit those things one class in.
Me too.
Yeah.
So everyone does. No one sticks with it. And there's a few companies now like Testive who are doing it in a variety of different ways, where our focus is not actually on the content or accessing the content. It's on the motivation, which is what 99% of the world struggles with in learning. And so we create a lot of different tools for teachers to use to be able to help students with motivation and compliance
in an online classroom,
in an online environment.
Got it.
It's mainly right now we deliver it one-on-one tutoring for test prep. And the reason we went with test prep is, and this is where Mira and Tom were smart. It's a good market. Exactly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I like what you're saying, because I was going to challenge you a little bit, because there's a lot, and the news article has escaped me, but recently there was a news article that just said some of the big schools just dropped ACT, which is awesome for the most part. I think most of us can agree that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I like what you're saying is that you guys didn't design it just to close the gap around test prep, but to really start to build this out so it can be used.
Yeah, test prep's just kind of the first entry point.
And it's a great market. People will pay for
sustain
it.
ourselves. Yeah. But what we're learning in the process of that, and we have testimonials from parents all the time that, yes, the kids raise their scores, but more importantly, they learn important discipline and study habits. And that's stuff that you can take this high stakes exam. And that's where I like the tests in that sense, is it takes this very short term view on it, which is bad for some reasons, but also good from a learning perspective, as it forces people to kind of change behavior. So I've learned a lot. I mean, I at first, when they came to me, I was like, no way on test prep. But I think it's a really interesting way. I could see things moving in the future. So.
Yeah. And it's another interesting place to try to close the gap too. Yeah. So I'm wondering, I mean, that's what you're really passionate about. So how do you see Testive playing into that, closing the education gap in this country or globally?
So, I mean, the one thing we did, it's 2 years ago when we were 5 people, we used to charge $130 per month for our software. And in May 2014, we opened it up completely free.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's people charge $400 for our software is much better than our competitors,
right?
And people charge for it. We made that decision consciously. One, obviously, there was business reasons to do it. We were more focused on coaching, but we were all pretty passionate about opening up kind of the access to really high quality content and also high quality kind of technology. We have algorithms that kind of personalize someone's experience.
So if I need help with the ACT or the SAT, I can go to Testive and for free I can get some tutoring, or
you can get access to kind of all of our resources. There's no tutoring.
Okay, so that's what you have to pay for.
That's how we make our money and keep the lights on. Is you pay to be matched up with a one-on-one coach, but everything else is completely free. And that everything else is what a lot of other companies charge $500 to $600 for.
Yeah.
So that was now we're starting to work with schools a lot. So we're starting to offer that to schools to help there. And then my next project is working on how we deliver kind of one-on-one personalized attention at a significantly reduced cost. And we're getting close. Stay tuned.
Well, and I'm even thinking, back to the national service lens. So if you guys have made the tools free, then, how hard is it for someone in like a City or type role or Teach for America type role to be able to grab it? And then they take on that coaching piece of it. And then they have access to technology and they're taking it into lower income schools. It seems like there's a lot of kind of partnerships there.
Absolutely. No, we have teachers all the time kind of reach out and schedule a call with us. And again, we have students can sign up for a free account. Teachers can reach out to us and we can create a portal for them for their students to sign up for a free account. Cool. And then if they want to do the coaching and stuff like that, if enough people sign up for it, we'll do it. That's the beauty of nice. Changing stuff and owning that. So
That's great. So we do, before I let you go,
Sure.
we do have one question. What advice do you have for other social entrepreneurs that want to get into the tech space? Because you don't have a tech background. That's not what you studied in undergrad. So
Nope.
What was that challenge like, and what advice do you have for making that jump?
I think the jump, you have to recognize that in tech, there are really two roles. There's especially early on, if you're trying to get into kind of the entrepreneurship space, you're either selling or you're building. And you need to identify with one of those. And if you don't identify with one of those, then you need to kind of work in an environment where you can build up the skill set to actually be able to do that. If you want to do the tech side nowadays, there's a lot of different kind of cheaper than grad school or school alternatives like boot camps to go. That's a great transition point for if you want to be a developer. If you're sales oriented or marketing oriented, honestly, you just have to kind of listen and ask questions, and you have to have energy to do that. Basically, it's just a grind. Exactly. And I would say just go work for a company that in a sales and marketing role, and you should be able to transfer that over in the tech side.
Or do a year of service.
Or do a year of service. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much. It was so fun talking to you, and our time is up, so we're going to transition to our next speaker. Are they ready? All right, great. Thanks, Shonak. We'll talk to you later.
All right, take care. Bye.
Okay. Here's Alex.